Arik Armstead came out on his podcast. He at first released a clip that, in my opinion, didn't make him look too good, and it was awkward because it was from his own camp. But then when he unblurred out the number, which was the number that the 49ers had offered him in order to like take a pay cut and stay with the team, 49ers offered Arik Armstead $6 million, a 1-year deal. It was $8 million with incentives. And I have an interesting like way that I want to approach this topic. Is it possible? Because I think that that's such a low number compared to what he was supposed to be paid and then compared to what he ended up getting with the Jaguars. Do you think it's possible that the 49ers offered him that knowing that he would say no, but wanted to like, is that in some way the 40, like, you know how Arik Armstead said, I felt disrespected? Was it maybe their way of trying to honor the fact that they drafted him and he's been with the team so long, letting him deny it versus going to him and cutting, saying we're going to cut you? Like, does actually lowballing him and letting him be like, I'm going to take my, talents elsewhere, is that actually in some ways more respectful? Because I imagine that they knew he wasn't going to agree to that.
But I think it's also more disrespectful to do. I think it's also more disrespectful to do that. And shout out BA, shout out to Jason. I do agree. Closed mouths don't get fed, so BA needs to do that. But for the situation, I think you definitely got to look at Armstead's perspective, right? Like the team is planning on like, hey, you know what? Let's offer him this very cheap contract that we know he's not going to accept, because we don't want to just go up to him like, hey, we're going to cut you. We're going to try to trade you or not cut you. We got to remember, like during this, he's talked about during this process in February, they actually approached him about an extension. How do you go from an extension to take about a 2/3?
I like that they were just going to keep throwing the money down the freaking line.
But so an extension is a little different though, because you could do two different things with an extension. You could rip up the old contract in a way and say, hey, this is the new contract. So it drops cap numbers. So you could do that actually. So for him, the extension would have benefited the Niners. So initially start talking about an extension. And then you go to, hey, you know what? We'll give you $6 million on a 1-year deal. Like, you got to take this. And so it's like, in my opinion, I think it's more disrespectful that they did that knowing he was going to say no, because you don't just offer somebody money, right? Like, to be honest, like it's weird because, to be honest, the way they viewed him at this point was, you're not worth it to us.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I think it's disrespectful. I do think it is.
Is it fair that I, like, to go back and forth, I think that the offer was disrespectful in the way, like, I understand why Arik Armstead, as a player who, played through the MCL just now in the Super Bowl too, like, that's the last thing that he did for the 49ers was, like, put his body on the line for them. And he's, been with the organization for so long. But also from the 49ers, I kind of understand why they felt like he was worth that. They basically offered him what they ended up paying Malik Collins. And, Collins doesn't have an injury history. That injury is like a reoccurring use injury. So it's going to come back as long as he's standing on that foot. I mean, knock on wood, maybe it won't. But, like, most people will tell you with someone that size, that weight, putting pressure on that foot, it's a overuse injury that kind of doesn't go away. Didn't go away for the last 2 years. He missed, I think, 13 games in the last 2 seasons. So,
and I think, to be honest, what plays a factor into this as well is, so you are getting a cheaper defensive tackle, but you're also not getting as good of a defensive tackle, because so at his 17 million. He's playing more games, but the thing is too is,
but like lower level
the production wasn't like, just because, like, for example, people are like, oh well, Collins is going to play all season. One, we don't know that. Two, if you look at Collins' stats, from, because people like to talk stats, right? They like to bring up the stats. Collins' stats weren't that more impressive, even though BA missed a good portion of the season.
That is such a, I love that you pointed that out, because I've heard people say that, like, they've been like, oh, well, like, they have the same, production. And it's like, well, the reason that you're down on Arik Armstead is because he's missed games. So if Malik Collins has the same amount of production, but played every game, then that means he was like way less efficient in the time. You know what I mean? Like Arik Armstead was able to put up those stats with 6 less games. So I do agree with that.
And what's crazy because like I do see Steve-O's comment. Shout out to Steve-O being in the chat today. He says Armstead made more than Kittle at one time. I hated him for no reason. So we're criticizing a player, and this is a thing that I took offense to is I don't mind the Niners getting rid of Armstead. Like if you don't think he's valuable for your team, I don't mind it, right? But I do think it's disrespectful to a player in terms of the reason why he was getting paid so much is he's getting restructured. Like it's not his fault the team wants to restructure him to get cap space, and he's not going to say no. So for me, it's looking at one of those ones where he's not going to say no to the team to restructure because he's getting money up front, which is benefits a Armstead. Two, benefits the team, but then it puts his numbers higher following years, and fans want to make it his fault that the Niners gave him that contract. Like it is not Armstead's fault that he was offered a contract because it's what he was worth at the time. And they kept restructuring him to push money back, push money back, push money back. That's not his fault. That's it. Guess what? Yeah. The people we should be blaming is John Lynch and the organization for pushing money back, not Armstead. The player is, to be honest, the player taking a restructure and saying, you know what? No, I pushed these numbers back for you. I would have restructured my contract or taken a new deal or an extension if it's one of those ones where you truly are allowed to what's the word I'm looking for, like he was disrespectful. Like the offer was more like, okay, like hey, your numbers are at 17 right now, let's put it down to 10. It would have been understandable. But the fact that the offer was
I thought that it was going to be like 12 or 10.
I initially thought it was around 8. I was like, hey, I'm not taking half of my pay. Like I'm not taking half. If there's only one, if okay, I understand. Like if I'm taking $5 million less, okay, 10 million less because he's made a lot of money. Like it's understandable. He's from the California area, but there's no way I'm taking 2/3 of my pay. No way.
That's kind of funny because I think before he put out the actual number, people like saw that clip and they were like, oh, come on, you're not being disrespected. The 49ers have paid you so much. And I think when people heard that offer, they were like, nope, you're right. That's disrespectful. They're like, that's kind of a slap in the face. Do you think that like Wood cutting would have just like asking, to release him, like Wood cutting him or trading him, would that have felt more dignified for him? And would the 49ers have looked like, in my opinion, the 49ers either A, did this to let Arik Armstead have some dignity, like knowing that he was going to say no, but being like, I'm going to give you the opportunity to turn us down instead of us saying we don't want you. Or it could be, if you're going more sinister, the team trying to save face, and instead of just cutting him, being like, oh, well, if we offer him a deal and he turns it down, at least we can say, oh, well, like we wanted him, we tried, but we just couldn't make it work in our cap.
I think it's definitely one of those ones where the 49ers are the way they did things. Like if you do approach them, like, hey, Armstead, like we don't think your numbers are going to work. We're going to have to look for a trade for you, or we're going to have to cut you. I think it's as long as you're being transparent with him and you're going to him first and letting him know, like, hey, this is the plan. Then it's not going to be disrespectful. It's disrespectful when I think he felt disrespected because he felt like an extension was coming when he was speaking to the team regarding an extension, and then, like, I think that's more. So, for example,
it's someone like pulling the rug out from under you because you're very much not expecting it.
Let me put it this way: in a perspective of our in reality for most people, right? Let's say your employer like came to you, Ashley, like you're working, and they're like, "Hey, we want to promote you. We want to like extend you, like
you want to. I'm great.
Yeah, like right, like okay, you're feeling good, right? You're feeling good. You're like, oh, you're feeling great, and then your manager comes to you and is like, "Hey, actually, Ashley, we're gonna have to either ask you to take a really, really big pay cut, about 50% or more, or you know what? We're gonna lay you off."
Yeah.
Right? Like,
You're like, what
you're like, wait, whoa. I thought you valued me because you were getting ready to promote me. Essentially, that's what in NFL, you don't get promoted. You get an extension. That's their way of getting promoted. So essentially, like, oh, cool, great. Right? Like, I'm phenomenal. I'm excited. And then you get told, you know what, never mind. Like, and I get it's a business decision. The NFL is a business, but it's also too, there's emotions involved.
Are you
There's
thinking? Says, Jason says it's a business decision on both sides. Like, look, you only play maybe 10 games a year, and we need to save money for the future. Take this money or bet on yourself and go to the market and get paid. And to be fair, Arik Armstead, like the short clip that he puts out, maybe makes it seem like he has a little bit of resentment for the 49ers. And I think
we
he even admits,
understand.
like, his first reaction, like any of us, would be like, what the fuck? But then, like, if you listen to the whole podcast, he does say, like, I think he understands, but he was like, at the same time that I understand you need to do what's best for you, then, like, I need to go see if I can get more. And he did. So kind of,
And I think too, like, it's a business, right? But there's also the human aspect involved. Like, it's not just a business in terms of, like, it's hard business. And I think he understood that, because he mentioned, I understood it was a business, and I told him, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and bet on myself. He did bet on himself, and he got 17 mil. Like,
let's
so
go
he
bulky.
understood his value, and shout out to him for understanding his value. He's still a valuable
Would a
player, and
different
teams are
team
gonna.
have paid him? Would a different team besides, like, do you think that it's more that Trent Baalke drafted him and therefore was more willing to take a chance on him? Or do you think he would have gotten more money at some, like, even if it
Mm,
wasn't the Jags, would have gotten something?
I think he may have gotten
I
a
do
little
feel
bit
like the
less.
money he got from the Jags is pretty crazy. Like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that.
I'm pretty sure
But I
he
also wasn't expecting the $6 million for the 49ers. Like, I thought there was going to be like
was
a in
too
between.
big. That's a big
Yeah,
gap, right? Like, it's.
very extremes
I
going
think
on here.
he would have gotten less from, for example, because it's reported that there was multiple offers from multiple teams. It wasn't just the Jaguars in this situation. So he may have gotten offered less by another team, which is around 14, let me say 12. Even then, he's still making more money than the 6 million. So it's
Yeah.
like either way, he knew he was worth more than that, and he got what he was worth. And essentially he signed a bigger deal. But I think the Niners should have approached him, and how Jason said it from the beginning, right? Like, it's a business decision. Like, hey, look, you're only playing 10 games. We can't do that to you. Like, they should just did that from the beginning instead of going, hey, let's extend you, to, hey, actually take this pay cut, or to actually, you know what, we're cutting you like that.
Like, kind of
There's two different extremes.
this goes to their, like, accounting error mistake, right? Where they ended up losing their 5th round pick and getting moved to the end of the 4th round, where it's like, it just feels like bad business. Like, if like, it feels like maybe they didn't do the math before approaching Arik Armstead for the extension. You know what I mean?
I just
Like,
read Steve-O's
figure out
comment.
what you're
Holy
doing.
shit.
Figure out
Holy shit.
I
I'm
also
sorry,
saw
Steve-O.
that and had that same
Holy
response.
shit. I'm sorry,
Um,
Steve-O.
I'm really quick
Hope
for
you found a job.
anyone.
Hope you bounce on your feet and you got a job after, because that's
Steve-O
crazy.
says, I got a $1 raise one time when everybody else
Holy shit.
got 25 cents. I was let go 2 weeks later. I also
Bro,
read that and was like,
I
damn.
feel bad that
'Cause you'd be
this
like,
hit
oh
so close
shit,
to home
like,
for
I
you.
think I'm so better. And then friggin' bam. And you're like, oh, well,
I
never
feel
mind.
bad
Good
because
thing
that hit close to home. I feel
hope
bad
you didn't
now.
celebrate too much.
Jeez. Well,
Um,
hopefully you're doing well. But I
so
think it could be disrespectful the way it went from one stream to the next, right?
oh,
Like,
what I was saying though, really quick is the going from one stream to the next, besides just disrespectful, in my opinion, I think we're learning a little bit, and we're not going to have like a conclusion on this, but I think it's good to kind of put these things together to see if the pattern continues, where it feels like money wise on the back end, the 49ers are a little bit messy. They made a mistake giving a player an extra 75K, and instead of reporting it to the league, they text the player like, hey, can you give me that? Imagine you're that player who
of
receives a fucking text from this $1 billion organization like, hey,
course,
on the demo, can you like Venmo me 75K back? You'd be like, first of all, you'd be like, this is a scam. Second of all, you'd be like, no, I'm not gonna do that, you idiot. Like, that was your bad.
If I was that player, I would have said,
You fuck up like
go.
that,
I would have been
don't
like, go fuck yourself. Like
yeah,
legitimately, I would be like, you're tripping. I ain't giving no money back. That was actually already spent. I just bought
yeah.
something. Go
Like,
fuck
oh,
yourself. I ain't giving you.
so
You're a
bad.
billion-dollar company. Tripping. Like, and I think that at the end of the
So
day, like,
funny that
how
they
did
tried
you
to,
not
like, get
report
it
that right
back.
away?
Like, oh. But
And
that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like the 49ers are just like a little bit like for them not being the lemonade stand anymore and having stuff so much more together,
hey,
feels
if
like
you're
they
not
have
cheating,
these
you're
like
not trying.
weird lapse in errors where with the Arik Armstead situation, figure out what you want to do before approaching the player. Don't
Absolutely.
approach the player for an extension and then 2 weeks later be like, actually, just kidding. How about we offer you a third of your salary? Like,
Yeah, just
know
weird.
that you're going to do that ahead of time. Like, before you go to them or to their agents, figure out how to structure your team and what you can offer each person. Like, don't do those things on the fly. Like, it just feels like you're a multi-billion, dollar organization. Why are you making these weird accounting mistakes? Maybe spend less time like buying soccer teams and more time on your actual football organization because it doesn't seem like you have everything together.